On today's show, it's a game day preview. The Ottawa Senators taking on the Detroit Red Wings, two wildcard contenders in a heated division rivalry.
And we have an interview with former NHL defenseman and Amazon Prime Monday Night Hockey broadcaster, Thomas Hickey.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Monday, March 10th, and Pillsy will get into the game and all the storylines around it, but we haven't really talked since the trade deadline. I know we had the postcast, and there's some amazing behind the scenes coming out about the Fabian Zetterlund deal.
Yeah, what a fascinating deal. Steve Staios confirmed that he got this done 27 seconds before the trade deadline ended. And we heard from Darren Dreger that this was a deal that Steve Staios was looking at for quite a while. And the San Jose Sharks were interested, but they had a different package in mind. GM Mike Greer was hoping to get a Josh Norris package, sending him back to San Jose. But Steve Staios found a way to have Norris involved in another deal and get Fabian Zetterlund at the last, I was going to say minute, Ross, the last half minute of the trade deadline. So that just even more stick taps to Steve Staios and the GMs and executives over in the Ottawa Senators corner, because they nailed it when you start to realize all the moving pieces that were going on that deadline day.
It's so good, and especially other teams were shocked it happened. It's not like Fabian Zetterlund was being shocked, but the Senators had their target. They said, we want this guy. How can we get him into the lineup? And next thing you know, he is an Ottawa Senator. He's on the ice right now for morning skate, and we're about to find out the line combinations as we await that. Let's tee up tonight's game. The Detroit Red Wings, who has surged so high up the standings considering where they were when Todd McClellan took over, they've plateaued. They've lost 5 in a row, including that outdoor game. 2 of their losses coming against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So it's been a bit of a free fall for them right now. Does that almost make you nervous for tonight's game? Or is it a course correction to where they should more likely be?
Well, Ross, it kind of reminds me of where the Sens were at right before the Four Nations break and then right after it, right? Like they were losing all those games they needed to win and other teams were winning, and we were kind of stuck watching our ship sink. There we go.
Ship sinks in the sea.
But it doesn't make me that nervous, Ross. Like obviously they're going to be juiced up for this game. They know what it means, but I love the way the Senators have looked recently, and it hasn't been pretty, Ross, but they're finding ways to get wins. They have points in their last 4 games now, or is it 5 now?
5.
5. And the only loss is a shootout loss to the best team in the Eastern Conference. So they're finding out.
Sorry, for Ottawa, it's the last 4.
Last 4, okay.
I think.
Yeah, I think the Sens are in a good place here. Dylan Cousins really seems like he's a good fit with this team. We're going to see Fabian Zetterlund in that number 20 Sens jersey for the first time. We'll get to the lines and where he's at. We're gonna work through that, Ross. I think it's gonna be okay. But certainly this game is very exciting. And Money Puck updates. They have little stats of teams' percentages to make the playoffs. If they win in regulation, if they lose in regulation, all those kinds of things. So that's fascinating to follow along now, Ross, because all of these games are so huge.
What are they calling it for Ottawa tonight? Is it a big game for the Sens?
Huge game, in my opinion.
Yeah, they call it a big game. No, they have on Money Puck when they do those little stack cards where it's like if they win in regulation, they lose. What if it's overtime?
Right.
How does it affect their odds for everything? And they've got different implications. Like it's a pretty big game.
Okay.
It's a not so important game, all that. And it is a huge game for both of these teams tonight. No doubt when you look at how they are in the standings. The Senators come in second wild card spot because Columbus beat the New York Rangers in regulation yesterday. So the regulation win was all we could ask for in that one. Ottawa 1 point up on the Rangers with 2 games in hand. And then it's the Detroit Red Wings who have a game in hand, Ottawa has a game in hand on them as well, and they're 3 points back. So it's huge from a standpoint too. Montreal's also tied 66 points. So are the Boston Bruins. But let's focus on the task at hand here. One, the good news is no matter what happens tonight, Ottawa's still in a playoff spot. But this is one of those opportunity games where it feels like they've fallen quite a bit this year, where it's like you could really put a little bit of separation here between yourselves and the pack. I know the Rangers are right there, but the pack of teams that are following you, this would be one of those where you can really get ahead.
Especially an Atlantic Division rival, Ross. And we talked about it. It's kind of funny that we see such a heated bad blood rivalry between the Red Wings and Sens, as history would show. That's just not there. Like, Detroit was in the Western Conference for so long. These two teams have never played in the playoffs. And even those bad blood heated rivalry games were ultimately meaningless games, as neither of those impacted either team making the playoffs. But the hatred is there. And when these two teams play now, the last couple of years, they've been big. They're part of the Atlantic Division rebuild triangle where Buffalo, Detroit, and Ottawa are kind of pitted against each other at the start of every season, with hockey analysts being like, which one of these three is going to make the moves? And right now, the Senators are at the top of that triangle.
Well, those are the 3 teams in the entire National Hockey League with the longest playoff droughts. For Ottawa, it's 7 seasons. For Detroit, it's 8 seasons and 13.
Oh, well, it's going to be 14 here
in Buffalo. But the Senators Sabres look great on Saturday, and Dylan Cousins is expected to remain in the same spot. Frankly, outside of adding Fabian Zetterlund to what was an 11-7 setup over the weekend, it looks like I'm going to call him Tom Gilbert a lot, former Oilers defenseman. Yep. Dennis Gilbert. It feels like it will be the odd man out, according to the morning skate. He was a placeholder in the spot of Nick Jensen. Nick Jensen is just at the point now where he ain't practicing on days of the game. We know he's dealing with something, and it's unfortunate because, look, he's still a shutdown defenseman. He's still playing well, but he hasn't had the same impact that he had earlier on in the season. And you understand that he is battling through, and he's playing all the games. I think he just missed 1, if not 2. Tim Stützle will be on the top line between Brady Tkachuk and Claude Giroux. You got Dylan Cousins there with David Perron and Drake Batherson. Shane Pinto between Ridley Gregg and Michael Amadio. Yeah, I know what everyone's saying. Why have you not sent Fabian Zetterlund? Well, he's on the 4th line. Adam Gaudette at center with Matthew Highmore at left wing and Fabian Zetterlund on the right side. Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen, and you've got Tyler Clevin with Travis Hamonic on the 3rd pair, meaning that Dennis Gilbert and Nicholas Matin-Palo are your extra defensemen. Linus Ullmark and Anton Forsberg in goal. We're awaiting to hear from Travis Green. When we know who the starting goalie is, we will let you know. But are you surprised that Fabian Zetterlund is starting out on the 4th line?
Ross, not surprised. I'll go with disappointed. I did my mock lineup on trade deadline day of how I wanted things to look out. But seeing him on the 4th line, I was like, oh, come on. Are we serious here? But I will say maybe this is the right move. It's been a whirlwind for Zetterlund, I'm sure. As he said, he was in the red light sauna when he got news that he was traded. So it's not like he was expecting to get traded. Lots of travel, him getting here. He doesn't really know anybody on the team. He mentioned he knows his 2 Swedish goalies and Alfie, but he's not really like friends with any of the guys. So I think this is maybe the right move to get him acclimated to the team. Just get him a couple minutes on the 4th line, let him get familiar with the new surroundings and new people that he's going to be with. And Ross, I wouldn't even be that surprised if halfway through the game we see him elevated in the lineup. So let's all just take a deep breath and calm down. Fabian Zetterlund is not going to be an everyday 4th liner. I can tell you Steve Staios did not give that package to San Jose to beef up the 4th line.
His post-Four Nations schedule has been nuts. At Calgary, at Winnipeg, at Montreal, at Ottawa, at Toronto, at Buffalo, at Colorado, home to San Jose, 1 game a day later, and then he's back on a bird about to take on the Red Wings with Ottawa in the nation's capital. That is a lot of travel for him. So, look, we all want to see him play more than 14, 15 minutes in his debut. What are you going to set the over-under at time on ice for fourth liner, Fabian Zetterlund?
Yeah, I think even 14, 15 minutes is probably high if he spends most of the time on the fourth line. I'll go 11.
I'll say over 11. And one of those reasons is because he will be playing on the second power play unit. The top unit doesn't change. Jake Sanderson, Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Drake Batherson, and Dylan Cousins is getting a look on that top power play unit. The second unit is going to be Thomas Chabot, Ridley Gregg, Claude Giroux, Fabian Zetterlund, and David Perron. So Zetterlund with a couple vets on there. You got the young guy in front with Ridley Gregg and Chabot quarterbacking that power play. I'm a little surprised that Shane Pinto was taken off the power play. I think he's so important on the PK and at 5-on-5. That's my only thought process, but I would have Shane Pinto out there over Ridley Gregg or even David Perron in the second unit.
Yeah, I agree. That does seem weird. And Ross, I think the biggest lineup surprise to me, how is Travis Hamonic in this lineup? Like, it looked like that was like when we saw that, Ross, we were like, we hope he's okay. And in my mind, I was like, I hope it's not a week-to-week thing and it's merely a day-to-day thing for him, because you don't want to see any player seriously injured, obviously. But I thought 100%, no doubt in my mind, there's no way he's playing on Monday at the very least. And they just acquired another defenseman in Dennis Gilbert, and they have Nicholas Martin-Powell. What are you doing trotting out a veteran guy that had barely was able to get off the ice on his own power in the last game? Why is he the guy in the lineup here? Among other things, it's just crazy that he's the guy of all the defensemen we have, and with what happened last game, he's the guy in there.
So it'll be interesting to see how the Sens shake out tonight with time on ice and how everything is deployed in a huge, huge game. We'll preview the Detroit Red Wings side of things after, but first, Pilsy's got a one-on-one interview with Thomas Hickey, and tonight's game is on Amazon Prime, which means it is a 7:30 start, but we are going to put the must-watch stamp on the pregame show tonight, starting at 7 o'clock. They do a really cool warm-up view where they've got just the sights and sounds, no audio over it, just what's going on the ice at warm-up, and there might be a special feature there as well. But now let's get to Pilsy's conversation with analyst with tonight's broadcast on Amazon Prime Monday Night Hockey. It's Thomas Hickey.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Will crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep full longer. Personally, my favorite flavor is the salt and pepper flavor. Check them out in the light purple bags. But if you want to get at your pistachios quicker, you can get the no shells variety. It's just straight pistachios. But I love spending the time cracking open the nuts. It's like a little reward every time you get one. And it's great for watching movies, watching hockey, because you're not going to burn through that snack too quickly. And you got to work for it with Wonderful Pistachios. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. We now welcome on a very special guest from Amazon Prime Monday Night Hockey broadcast, longtime NHLer and 2-time World Junior gold medalist, including captain of the 2009 team in Ottawa. It's Thomas Hickey. How you doing today, Thomas?
I'm doing good. Always happy to be back in Ottawa. So extra exciting because of everything you mentioned, but exciting time to be a Sens fan, I think, with all that's going on. So it's going to be a really good game tonight. Playoff implications, teams sort of heading in opposite directions, but still so much hockey left. So I can't wait for tonight.
Yeah, the Eastern Conference wildcard playoff race is going to be an absolute blast. Sens fans are stoked to be a part of it. It's been a while, Thomas, since we've had some meaningful games here. But what's been your impression of the Ottawa Senators so far this season?
I like watching Ottawa. I think every time I've got to see them live, I've been really impressed. I think they're good. I think they're a playoff team. And then there's times that I'll turn the TV on and they don't quite look like what I saw with my own eyes. Um, there's a structure to their game defensively that they've lacked for a long time. I feel that they can hang in there in their own zone, and they get in their lairs. They have a good understanding of what they're supposed to do in the neutral zone. They stand out to me as a team that's good defensively in the neutral zone, and not a lot of teams are, but that's a sign of a team that has the ability to win games, win a lot of them, and hold on to leads and win in different ways. So I love that. And then the emotional side of the Sens, when you talk about, Brady Tkachuk, and you talk about the passion that you can see a lot of times. I like it. I like the roster mix. Guys having bounce back seasons. I've enjoyed watching the Senators. So I've been saying it for, I think, since early. I think that they're a playoff team, and they find themselves right in that spot right now. So I certainly enjoyed it. I think Travis Green's done an underratedly nice job too. And, there are the times that you watch the Sens and get frustrated. Maybe it looks like a little too much east-west. Sometimes they're forcing things, but when they're on their game, they're an enjoyable watch for me.
Yeah, I think the coaching staff definitely deserves a big hat tip, because the Sens have dealt with a lot of injuries, but the defensive structure of this team has been pretty solid all season. As a longtime defenseman, what are some of the things that you've noticed with the Sens where you're like, ooh, this is where defensively they've really kind of turned things around, especially the last couple of years? This has not been a good defensive team.
Yeah, I think the sign of a lot of teams, if you go flip a game on and you see a team has 30 seconds of offensive zone time, so one team's defending, eventually, guys get tired, and then it leads to some sort of breakdown because maybe they don't know protocols, or some guys maybe chase when they shouldn't, or leave their own man. I think there's a discipline within Ottawa structure that they can really hang in there for 45 seconds, a minute, survive those shifts that other teams can't without really giving up a great egg. Yeah, of course you're going to give up, maybe something in the high slot that comes through a screen. That's fine. It's a good league. Other teams are going to get chances and opportunities. That's what stands out. But for me, it's, a lot of it is the ability to kill a play and get out of the zone. And then Sanderson, Shabbat, Jensen, and really the whole crew has done that. But that's really important as well, to have guys not only can kill a play, but Ottawa's an exciting team when they can spend time on their own end, and then the Sandersons and Shabbats make a great play and don't just ice it or get it out to neutral ice. Like, Ottawa gets possession and then comes up and does their own thing. So when they're playing their best, that's what you see. But not every team has 3 or 4 guys that can grab that puck, pull it off the wall, and really take that pressure off and get your team with the puck and start something on offense. So that definitely stands out for me.
Yeah, this has been the best the Sens decor has looked in a long time, and Sens fans have been loving watching this. Now, the Sens had a pretty interesting trade deadline, Thomas, moving some big pieces, getting some big pieces in return. A late second push. Fabian Zetterlund was acquired with 27 seconds left at the trade deadline, so Steve Stales just snuck in there. But I want to ask you, you spent majority of your time with one team playing with the New York Islanders. Josh Norris had only spent time playing with the Ottawa Senators, and then he gets moved at the deadline. We saw the emotional toll that took on the room. I don't know if you saw Brady Tkachuk's interview after, talking about what it was like to have a player like that leave. Was that something where you look at that and you're kind of concerned as a former player, where you're like, the Sens made a good trade here, but moving a well-liked guy that's been around with this core team in Josh Norris, was that something where you thought maybe that would have negative implications?
No, I get it. Like, guys are going to be crushed. I mean, if I'm a Sens fan, I'm happy to see that. Like, these guys love each other and care about each other. And obviously, not everyone has maybe the relationship that Brady and Josh Norris have. But you can tell it's a tight-knit group when things like that do happen. Reality is, if this team is 8 points inside the playoff cut line, are they making a big seismic change like this? Probably not, but it's a group that's been growing together for a long time. And, we obviously have to see how it plays out, but sometimes it's what a group needs, not to wake you up, but to realize that it is about business and it is about results as much as it is about forming a culture. And by all accounts, Dylan Cousins sounds like he's a guy that's certainly going to fit in with that, but that's a big one. And maybe this team needs that. Maybe they didn't, but maybe they did. And I think for Steve Staios and company, like you took this thing over, things are going in the right direction. But I think they've weighed it up, and I think for now we'll trust that decision. Norris is a really good player. I've enjoyed watching him this year. I didn't know he competed as hard as he did until I got to see him play live a bunch. So I hope he does really well. But it's sort of that type of move that grabs everyone's attention, but allows you to add something that's just a little bit different to your lineup. And that Zetterlund deal, it's one of my favorite ones of the deadline because. Yeah. You saw the assets that were flying around, and a Stopchuk, it's a nice prospect. Gregor's a guy that can go play anywhere and play in an energy line role. But in Zetterlund, you're getting for a second round pick, and we see what type of guys were traded for a second round pick. They're all good players. I'm not putting anyone down, but Fabian Zetterlund falls in the line of a guy that probably can score 20 goals every single year. Maybe he's got the upside for 30, but he's young and he's an RFA after his deal's up. So you've somehow managed to find a guy that, let's say 5 years down the road could be someone like the guys that got traded for a second round pick last week, but you get to have him for, 3 or 4 or 5 more years. So I think it was a savvy ad of a guy that's gets you younger. And he plays with a lot of jump, a lot of bite, a lot of energy. I think it's a really, really underrated move, especially when you look at everything that went down on trade deadline day and the amount that was paid for other guys.
Hope you're enjoying our chat with Thomas. We'll get right back to it. But first, Pilsy's got a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
Yes, this episode is also brought to you by Factor. Are you looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. They got 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week, so you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. They've got smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. The best part about Factor for me, guys, is how it takes out the stress of meal planning. I hate that 3 o'clock text to my fiance being like, wait, what are we doing for dinner? Did we pull the meat out? Do we have all the right sides? Do you need me to go to the grocery store? No, don't worry about that with Factor. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL 50 off and use code LockedOnNHL 50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. Once again, guys, that's code LockedOnNHL 50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL 50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. It's Factor. Yeah, we love the Zetterlund move here. We're excited to see his debut as an Ottawa Senator tonight on Amazon Prime Hockey up against the Detroit Red Wings. And he's one of those guys, Thomas. He's 5'11", 220 pounds. I don't know if you've seen some of his workout videos on Instagram, but this guy is an absolute unit.
Yeah, he's a beast. My last year, I went to camp in Jersey when he was still there, and he was sort of he'd sort of come on and very highly regarded within the organization, and then seeing him in the gym and skating with him, he's a thick guy. It's sort of the frame, like a Cal Clutterbuck, who I played with for a long time, like really low center of gravity, but Zetterlund gets around the ice really well too. So that's something that it's just tough to play against guys like that they can hold guys off, and that size and that strength and power sort of allows them to separate a little bit. And I think he puts all that weight and that strength into his shot too. He's got an excellent release as well.
Yeah, watching highlights of him has been awesome. We're excited to see him added to this group's top 6. They needed a top 6 scoring winger. I want to get into your broadcasting career a little bit too here, Thomas, because you jumped into it really quickly after you stopped playing. Was that something as you were moving on in your NHL career and still in your playing days that you're kind of looking forward and ahead, being like, I'm really interested in broadcasting after? Or was it something that just kind of happened organically and kind of came out of nowhere?
No, it was, I'd never thought about it. And it sort of shocks me now that I didn't think about it, because I love it. I didn't know enough about the roles and how much I would enjoy it, or else I think I would have been thinking about it for a long time. But I think that's the way, maybe that's why it's so enjoyable to me now, because it's all new and fresh, and I love it. I love coming to the rink every night for a game. It's always going to be a new game. No two games are the same, and every play is different, and getting to call and be in the action and see so many teams. I love it because I was a nerd, like a hockey nerd. I go home, I'm going to watch hockey. I want to go talk about hockey. So it was the perfect medium for me to be like, I can spend all my time doing this, and it's worked for me as well. I was, I always knew I wanted to stay in hockey. My younger years, I thought I want to be a GM. I would love to do that. And then, as time gets on and you get a little bit older, you realize there's a massive time commitment and sacrifice that goes into that, and moving around and being in different places. And for me, I think it was important to have something where, obviously I'm flying around all the time, but you can live in one area. And for us, that was important for my wife and I to sort of be in one spot. But I had the opportunity with the Islanders. They had a position opening with MSG, and they asked me if I wanted to do that. And I said, oh, when I'm done playing, I'd love to do that, but I'm going to continue to play professionally.
Right.
And that was the year that I went to camp on a PTO. It didn't work out in New Jersey, and I just picked up the phone the next day. The conversation was months and months earlier, and sort of forced my way in just to get a look to see if it's something that I would like to do. And I did it once in an analyst role, and I really loved it. And for me, I was like, okay, I think I'd enjoy this just as much as continuing my career and continuing to play. And I'm really, really grateful for those opportunities with MSG. And then since then, it's been a blur. It's gone by so fast, but I've gotten opportunities that I'm so grateful for. And I feel like I'm just still learning and getting to know a whole lot about the business and the industry, but get to work with so many great people that have taught me so much. So I'm having a blast. And I didn't think this what I'd be doing, if you would have asked me 5 years ago. But if I knew that now, I'd be extremely grateful and excited back then, knowing that I get to do what I do now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you landed in a good spot with Amazon Prime Monday Night Hockey. Final question for me here. I know you got to go. You want to get to the morning skate. What is it about working with the Amazon team that makes it so special and so different? Because this is kind of a new thing coming to hockey, where they try to amplify just one game a week on Monday night, and they've got such a diverse crew of people working, and the broadcast looks different and sounds different. Like, what is it about working with Amazon that's kind of impressed you so far?
Well, it's my first taste of doing a national broadcast, and there's constraints with regional broadcasts, and that sounds like a negative thing, but I'm part of it. With MSG, we do, there's 70 New York Islanders broadcasts. The same can be said for any regional show. You're covering the same team over and over again, and sometimes there's 3-4 games a week. So when you have one game a week, there's an opportunity to really pay attention to those storylines, and you've got two different teams, and there's so much to talk about, but there's also more preparation time just for the one game. And I hope it shows in our broadcast. I certainly think it does. But with Amazon in particular, the resources that we have, as far as there's a reason why it looks different. I enjoy, obviously I'm doing it all the time, so I don't really get to watch, but when I do see it, it looks clean, it looks crisp. But there's so many other things as far as the resources that we have at our hands with our entire production team. The amount of cameras that you have, the audio that you have, it's on steroids compared to the constraints that you have with regional shows. So we're lucky that Amazon sort of pumped everything in, said, we want it to be as good as possible. Here's every resource you could possibly imagine. And I think our crew takes full advantage of that. And that's the most important thing. It's one thing to have the resources. It's another thing to take advantage of it. And I get to work with, John Forsland, who's been doing this forever, and he's a brilliant play-by-play guy. My teammates on color, really established guys have been doing it for a long time. So I'm learning from so many people, but I didn't realize this when I was playing. I didn't realize this until I started. The people behind the scenes are so important with their hockey intelligence, and our crew, like when you're talking about replays, when you're talking about which camera to use, you really need to understand the game as if you were, not that you played in the NHL, but what hockey fans want to see. And I think our crew behind the scenes understands that, and they put it forth. Because if a game, to me, I watch and it's just a good game and it looks exciting and I don't have a rooting interest for both teams, it's probably a really well-produced a bit of work. And I hope that that's what you get with Amazon, whether you're a Sens fan or not. You just tune in and go, that was a good game. I think because all those pieces are coming together and sort of elevating the guys on the ice are what's making everything happen, but you're elevating that product. And I think we're doing that with Prime. So it's been a blast.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Thomas. It's been awesome watching the Amazon broadcast. I think I speak for Sens fans and all hockey fans, like you said, that they do a top-notch job of broadcasting a game. And you do a top-notch job yourself. Thank you for joining us here at Locked On Senators podcast. And we're stoked to see you up on the big screen.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. See you tonight.
All right, Pillsy, game day preview. Ottawa Senators taking on the Detroit Red Wings. We already went through the Senators lineup. Give me your locked on player to watch.
I mean, it's got to be Fabian Zetterlund. I know maybe he's not going to get a whole lot of minutes here, but Ross, I don't know if did you see some of his workout videos? This guy deadlifted 660 pounds. That's 3 times his body weight, and he weighs 220. Like, it's insane the physical attributes that this guy has. He's a beast in the gym and a beast on the ice, and he puts a lot of that strength into his shot too. I can't wait. You mentioned that he's going to get looks on the power play. I can't wait to see what he looks like when he's got the puck in the offensive zone with time and space. So I'm going to be locked on to number 20, Fabian Zetterlund.
Yeah, good call there, Pillsy. I want to go with the other new guy, Dylan Cousins, but how can you ignore a 14-game point streak? Rub the buzz cut for Timmy Stu. I mean, this guy is incredible. Both of the last 2 games, he doesn't have a point during regulation, but in overtime, he continues the streak.
Yeah, true.
A goal against Chicago, an elite assist against the New York Rangers. Did you see that angle that we posted on Twitter, but the Senators official account had it on Instagram? Like, you can freeze frame it, and it's keeping up with the Millers, Keandre on one side, JT on the other, and this saucer UFO was just soaring right between them, and it landed in a perfect spot. Like, not only on Brady's tape, but Brady's stick cocked back so that he could then use the momentum of his stick and shoot it right. It was unreal. So Timmy Stützle with 20 points during this 14-game point streak. He'll be my locked on player to watch.
Yeah, good call. Can't fault you there. Yeah, I did not realize how great that pass was. Like, in real time, I was just like, ooh, nice play by Timmy. But watching it again,
you thought it was like the Pinto pass to Shabbat out of the corner. It kind of had a little bit of the similar vibe, but no, he put some mustard on that and got it up over the sticks that he needed to. Shout out to those Millers for discombobulating the breakout pass and helping Ottawa get the 2 points in a game. Wow, just go watch the postcast. We were absolutely buzzing after that one. The Senators 3-0-1 in their last 5. Well, now let's look at the Detroit Red Wings, who are 0-5-0 in their last 5 games. They've got a lot of young, talented players who are playing in high spots in the lineup. I will mention this is before the morning skate for the Detroit Red Wings. This is based on their practice yesterday. Dylan Larkin was having a maintenance day yesterday. He will play tonight as the top line center with Elmer Soderblom and Lucas Raymond. The second line center is Marco Kasper with Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane. They've got JT Miller with Jonathan Berggren and Vladimir Tarasenko, and Michael Rasmussen with Tyler Mott and the newly acquired Craig Smith. On the back end, it's Ben Sherratt with Moritz Seider. Simon Edvinsson is with Albert Johansson, Eric Gustafsson with Justin Hall, and we expect newcomer Peter Mrazek to start. If not, it'll be former Senator Cam Talbot. What are your thoughts on the Detroit Red Wings right now?
Ross, I still can't wrap my head around why they didn't make bigger moves than acquiring a goalie that has terrible stats this year, albeit with the Chicago Blackhawks, and a fourth liner. Like, they have $10 million in cap space. They have so much assets in picks and prospects. They're right in this race. I don't know. Seems crazy to me that they didn't do bigger moves, but I'm not mad about it. I'll say that.
No, nor am I. And talking to our resident Red Wings fan, Eiserman season, really good follow on Twitter. He's just saying that, it's not the time to push your chips into the middle. That the Red Wings maybe were overachieving earlier on in the year because they do still have an amazing prospect pool. So maybe they feel like, hey, Tampa's still buzzing this year. You still have those top three that are untouchable in the Atlantic Division. Maybe this is the year where we see what we're made of as we're built right now and allow the growth for Marco Kasper playing top 6 minutes. 6'8" forward Elmer Soderblom. Can he be a top 6 contributor? You've got Simon Edvinsson in the original spot, basically, that Jake Sanderson was in, where he's good, and there's games where he pops off. He had 2 goals in one game recently that really helped them get the victory. Then, as things go on in the next couple of years, when Edvinsson's a legit number 1 pair defenseman, that's when you start selling off assets to make that push. I feel like some Red Wings fans are on your side, but I think others might have even been like, hey, look what Pierre Dorion did in Ottawa and got rid of all those assets a little early. And I think they might be taking the more patient approach. Now, is it easy to sell patience when you've gone 8 seasons without making the playoffs? No. But I think that's probably their thought process there, not to mention the high prices that are being paid at the deadline.
No, that's totally fair. I just viewed it, Ross, as they were a team that could flex their muscles with cap space and picks and prospects to use. Like, they had the assets in a seller's market to make a big move, and they chose not to. We'll see if that ends up being the smart play or not. You mentioned my lookout player, Ross, number 92, Marco Kasper.
Oh, I mentioned every player on the roster. I just read their lines.
Yeah, well, I mean, in your little speech there, but yes, you did mention all the players. But I really like Marco Kasper as a prospect. When we did our prospect profiles, Ross, he was one of the guys. I even famously tweeted out, the Sens will select with the 7th overall pick.
Alex DeBrincat.
No, in the 2022 draft, Marco Kasper. And people were very upset with me about that because they're like, wait, did I miss the draft? Did this already happen? And then, of course, I think a lot of people, you and Martian especially, were like, Pilsy, what are you talking about? They're not keeping that pick. And they traded it. And the Red Wings drafted him 8th overall, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe 9th. Top
10. 8th overall.
Nice.
So, yeah, he's a player I really like from Austria. And now with Andrew Kopp out of the lineup on long-term IR, he's getting a big opportunity here. And it hasn't really gone super well for him so far, Ross. He's in a 5-game pointless streak the last 5 games. And those have resulted, as you mentioned, all in losses. But I'm looking for him to have a big game, and I'm going to be looking out for number 92.
Very good call. I like that pick. I'm going to go with their top dog, Lucas Raymond. 2 assists in the loss at Washington in their last game. That snapped a 5-game pointless streak for him. Feel like he always plays well against the Ottawa Senators. In his career against Ottawa, he's got 8 points in 13 games, dash 12. So maybe I was a little wrong there. It's his worst plus-minus against any team in the league, but he's a fun, electric player to watch whenever he's on the ice. So number 23 for me will be my lookout player to watch. If Ottawa can keep him at bay, and of course, the combination of DeBrincat and Patrick Kane, I think they're going to be in a good spot to win this game. So I'll be looking out for Lucas Raymond.
And just honorable mention, I'll also be looking out for number 71, Dylan Larkin, their captain. Our captain has been scoring goals recently, and Dylan Larkin scored a goal in the last 2 games as well. So he's kind of clicking right now too.
All right, Pillsy. So that's the Detroit Red Wings. And even though they've been on this losing streak, a win tonight would put them just 1 point back of the Ottawa Senators. So an enormous game tonight at 7:30 on Prime Monday Night Hockey. And I'm so excited for these broadcasts. You just heard from Thomas Hickey. Great guy, great broadcaster. And you got to think it's great for him coming back into that rink where he won the gold medal at the World Juniors as captain of Team Canada. What a tournament that was. But that's neither here nor there. Pillsy, what do the Sens have to do to get 2 points tonight?
Well, I want to see their 5-on-5 game be a big part of it, Ross. We know Steve Staios was keying in on how bad the Sens are 5-on-5, and he brought in 2 players in Dylan Cousins and Fabian Zetterlund that are among the top guys in 5-on-5 points with the Ottawa Senators now that they joined this team. So we talked about how the power play units look a little different. No Shane Pinto, Dylan Cousins, Fabian Zetterlund on there. So I'm not going to be relying too much on how the Ottawa Senators do on the power play. I want to see them get it done in 5-on-5. And Ross, we need a regulation win here. Don't get me wrong. I love Ottawa Senators hockey more than anyone, but I don't want to see bonus Ottawa Senators hockey tonight. Get it done in 60 minutes.
Yeah, it would be the first time in 3 games they get it done in 60 minutes after going to overtime. Or no, in 3, right? Because they went to a shootout against Washington. So 3 straight games already where they've gone past regulation. So yeah, those regulation wins, they matter. They're going to be the first tiebreak if things stay tight at the end of the season. A win tonight would untighten the race just a little bit. Obviously, it wouldn't put them in the playoffs or anything, but it would give you breathing room between yourselves and the teams chasing you. The Senators and Wings are the only 2 teams in the Eastern Conference wildcard race that are playing today. The other matchups, the Buffalo Sabres host the Edmonton Oilers. You've got the Toronto Maple Leafs in Utah, and Colorado will be at home to Chicago. Pillsy, expectations for Fabian Zetterlund. We kind of hit on it at the top of the show. For me, it's just getting his feet wet. I'd like to see 2 or 3 shots on goal, maybe one of those on the power play. And I'm not going to have the highest expectations for today after the travel I mentioned that he's been through and everything. So I'm going to be looking for him on Tuesday's game tomorrow to really start making an impact.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I want to see a couple of shots. Ross, you posted his highlight reel, and
sick.
It's sick the way this guy can rip the pill. But also, Ross, on a more minor scale, I want to see him use that strength that he has in board battles in the corner, neutral zone, things like that. Like, I'm going to be watching the little things that don't show up on the highlight reels. Like, for a guy to have that amount of strength, I want to see him use it on the ice in hockey situations. All
right, Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is the Belleville Senators are, tough couple losses for them as they lost 8-3 to the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins on Saturday. And then on Sunday, things did not get better. They lost 4-1 to the Hartford Wolfpack. Good news is they're still tied for that 5th spot in the North Division, but Syracuse is ahead of them with regulation wins. So they gotta right this ship once again here.
Yes, they do. But tonight, it's all about the Ottawa Senators. We will see you in the postcast after tonight's game. For now, we say goodbye. Reminder, if you missed any of our coverage of trade deadline, you can go check that out wherever you get podcasts, free and available on YouTube as well. A subscription goes a long way to helping the show grow. We are on the road to 10K. We are just 208 subscribers away from 10,000. So help us get there. Be a friend. Tell a friend. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.